Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. We got 4 reasons why the Kansas City Chiefs will not three-peat. Let's check this out.
The Kansas City Chiefs have been the most dominant team in recent years,
Yep.
and after some careful considerations
All
about
thanks
what
to that
I
man
wanted
right
to do
there,
regarding this Kansas
Patrick
City Chiefs
Mahomes.
video, I decided that I would create a list of 4 possible
Bullshit.
reasons as to why the Kansas City Chiefs
Like,
might
why the
not be
fuck
able
is
to
this nigga so
complete
damn
the
good?
three-peat. So obviously, it goes without saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are an incredible team. They're the best team in the league for a reason. They're a 2-time champion the past 2 years. They're more than likely
you gotta admit, like, bro, last year seemed a little bit scripted, bro, because they were struggling like crazy, and then all of a sudden Taylor Swift comes into, you know what I'm saying, comes into the picture, and they start to really pick up steam. Maybe it was scripted just a little bit so they can sell more tickets, you know what I'm saying, more money for the Super Bowl and shit. I feel like that's exactly what happened.
Year. So with that being said, instead of doing
100%.
my typical why this team is good, why this team is bad type of video, I decided to create a list of the 4 biggest reasons as to why the Kansas City Chiefs might not be going for a three-peat. And we're going to begin with my number 1 reason as to why the Chiefs will not be able to win the Super Bowl this year, and that is going to be because of the rest of the AFC improvements.
Yeah.
We'll start off within their own personal division because I do feel as if this is the weakest division within the conference. The Chiefs are obviously in the AFC West with teams like the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the LA Chargers. Starting off with the Denver Broncos,
and it's crazy because they were like one of the strongest divisions a couple seasons ago, but now like they're at the bottom.
First team in the league.
Because you got the AFC North, the AFC South,
the Raiders and Chargers do have some upside to be pretty decent
the AFC
next
East.
year. Neither one of those teams, in my opinion, are any sort of threat to the Kansas City Chiefs, especially when it comes to winning the division. But in a regular season matchup between those two teams, it could be somewhat difficult. To me, things get really interesting.
Division games are always tougher, so it's hard to really call those.
Which has 4 extremely young and talented teams that all honestly could pose as some legitimate threats to the Chiefs. And when I say legitimate threats, I kind of mean it in the same lines as I said with the Raiders and Chargers. I don't think they're going to beat this team in the playoffs, but when it does come down
if
to
any
a
team
regular
is
season
going to be
matchup,
the
it could pose
Texans.
a serious threat.
Did the Texans play the Chiefs last year or no?
Be the Houston Texans. They have
See, the Stroud versus
ultra-talented
Patrick
quarterback
Mahomes
to go
gonna be
along with
crazy.
an ultra-talented head coach and just overall a really solid roster. Last year, they were a big-time surprise, especially in the later half of that season. And then in this offseason, they went out there and were extremely aggressive to shore up some different positions along the defensive line, within the receiving room, and within the running back room. And now they pose as one of the biggest threats to the Kansas City Chiefs. We also do have to quickly acknowledge the Jaguars and the Colts. I do expect both those teams to be in the playoffs or within the realm of making the playoffs. Those are 2 really solid rosters. The AFC North is arguably the best division in the NFL. The Ravens, Bengals, Browns, and Steelers all pose as legitimate threats both within the regular season and within the playoffs. Of these 4 teams, I think the weakest of them would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's just simply because I don't trust Justin Fields nor Russell Wilson to outduel Patrick Mahomes. But roster-wise, the Steelers roster is really solid, and I do think that they could give the Chiefs a run for their money. The Browns have one of the most formidable defense, but I still have some questions with Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson can turn back the clock and look like he did back in 2018, we're talking about a really awesome
that 2018 season.
Then you have the
crazy.
Bengals and the Ravens, and a quick little spoiler here, I will be making a Ravens video here soon, so if you are a Baltimore fan, make sure you guys hit the subscribe
Let's
button.
go.
But both these
I'm
teams
waiting
do
on that,
pose
bro.
as some real legitimate
We gonna check that out for sure.
threats to the Chiefs. Both those teams are really awesome. They're both really good defensive and offensive teams. They really don't have too many weaknesses, and when both these teams are 100% healthy, both of these teams could easily beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. Then you have the AFC East with the likes of the Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets. The Patriots obviously stand no chance. I don't really think the Dolphins are as good as they were
that
last
shit would
year,
be a
so
slaughter.
I don't think they'll be beating the Chiefs. But then you have the Bills and the Jets, and obviously the Chiefs have basically owned the Bills in the playoffs the past couple years, but I will say I do think the Bills still pose a legitimate threat. And then you have the New York Jets, who I made a video on a couple days ago about which teams could pose a threat to the Kansas City Chiefs, and within that video I did have the New York Jets. If this Jets team stays healthy and if Aaron Rodgers plays like his normal self, we're talking about a legitimate
Bro, the
threat
crazy
within the AFC.
glaze
They
of
could
the
be one
Jets
the
has
best teams
been
in the league
crazy
next year
lately.
if they're 100% healthy.
I understand they've done a lot to get better, and they have one of the best defenses in the league, but bro, Aaron Rodgers, this nigga is what, 40 something, bro, coming off a torn Achilles. We don't know if he's still gonna be at that MVP type level, so just calm down for a second.
Receivers, some really good running backs, decent enough offensive line, a great quarterback, and a great defense. I think that is a formula to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. So within the AFC, I think there's about maybe 4 major threats to the Chiefs when it comes down to playoff time, and that is going to be the Jets, Ravens, Bengals, and Texans. And if you do want to expand that out to teams like the Bills, Browns, Colts, and maybe even the Jaguars, then you can definitely do do so. Coming in at number 2 as to my second reason as to why the Chiefs will not win a third Super Bowl is going to be within the NFC, and we're talking about some major teams within that conference. Sticking to the divisions here, looking at the NFC, if you look at the NFC East, I think the biggest threat within that division is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles brought in Saquon Barkley. They fixed up their corner.
That's going to be a nasty
I think that overall this roster
duel between
is
him
due
and
for a
Hurts.
bounce back season, just based off what we
see. Bro, I know Jason Kelsey's not there anymore, but still, good luck stopping these niggas from tush pushing. They got 2 niggas who squat 600 pounds each, bro. That shit is unfair.
Last year, I think Jalen Hurts,
bro, the tush push, they finna be driving down the field 10 yards by one tush push, nigga.
I just don't really think he's a level of the same guys like a Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford, but I do think he's arguably a top 10 quarterback, and if you do have him in your top 10, I don't blame you at all. But as a whole, this roster is freaking awesome.
No, top 15,
they showed up some major positions on defense.
10.
Yes, the linebacking core still sucks, and I do have some question marks about the defensive line and some pieces on the offensive line, but for the most part, this team is basically complete from head to toe. We saw just quite literally 2 years ago this Eagles team make it all the way to the Super Bowl and arguably could have won that game if it wasn't for some costly late game shenanigans. But if this Eagles team can sort of turn back the clock in a way, that I definitely do think they pose some serious threats to the Kansas City Chiefs. Then you look at the NFC North. Again, as I said about the AFC North, the NFC North is arguably one of the best divisions in the entire NFL. Within this division, you have the Chicago Bears, Lions, Packers, and Vikings, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this outright. The Bears nor the Vikings really stand a chance against the Chiefs, but I do think the Lions and Packers are some legitimate threats when it comes down to the Super Bowl. I don't know if the Packers will get to that Super Bowl mark because there are some really awesome teams within the NFC, but if they do beat out the rest of those
they're
teams,
still very young, so they still got a lot to, learn
as a real
with all these teams that have a lot of veterans and shit.
Quarterback who, when he's on fire, you basically cannot stop. They
but give the Packers another year or so, bro. I feel like they're gonna be in that conversation for a Super Bowl.
Then you have the Detroit Lions, and if you've been following this page for quite some time, I've been very vocal,
especially if Jordan Love continues to play at a high level he did last year.
Number one threat to the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming season. They have playmakers in almost every single position, a head coach who is ballsy as hell, and a quarterback who I think is good enough to get the job done. That's enough said about them. The NFC South is
I feel like Dan Campbell's the type of nigga that will go for 2 when you're up by like 30 something, gang.
But that's just if they can reach their upside as a team. But truthfully, I don't think they're going to make it that far. Then you have the Rams and the Niners in the NFC West. Both those teams have obviously had a bunch of success the past couple years.
Been looking, good roster-wise.
Just have not been able
Blake
to
Corum and Kyron Williams is going to be a nasty
Rams
duo.
Who made it to a Super Bowl a few years ago, won the Super Bowl, and look poised to make another deep run this upcoming season. Both of these teams have really good quarterbacks with the likes of Matthew Stafford and, of course, Brock Purdy. Both of these teams have ridiculously loaded rosters that I think can match up quite nicely with the Chiefs. And both these teams have the experience to go toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. Coming in at number 3 is going to be the injury factor of an NFL season. Every NFL season, the team that wins the Super Bowl always has a tad bit of luck along the way. Of course, the typical winner of the Super Bowl always typically has the best or one of the best rosters, but a key part about winning a championship is staying healthy. And for this Kansas City Chiefs team, a real threat for them to potentially not go back-to-back-to-back as champions could be potentially because of the injury bug. Now, fortunately for the Chiefs, the past couple years, they've been relatively healthy. Yes, they've had a couple injuries along the way, but for key guys like Kelsey, Mahomes, and pieces on the defense, it's been a mainly healthy team. And for the most part, I do expect them to be healthy once again next year. This is just not a team that is very injury prone. They're very safe and they're very smart players. If Mahomes can stay healthy, this team will go as far as Mahomes will take them because Mahomes is that good of a quarterback. And I do think that this team is able to withstand a couple of injuries to some key positions as long as it does not affect them come playoff time. But as I said, every NFL team that makes that deep playoff run or makes that deep Super Bowl run always has to have a bit of luck. They always have to have favorable matchups. And for the Chiefs, I feel like every team is a favorable matchup. But in this situation, maybe you don't want to go up against one specific team, whether it comes down to playoffs or the Super Bowl, because that one specific team matches up quite nicely to something that you're maybe not as good at. Again, the Chiefs do stand toe-to-toe with basically every team, and I don't think there's any team that this team is necessarily afraid of, but you never know. one team maybe has some advantages in some positions that the Chiefs maybe lack in. So as I said, luck does play a factor, and I do think the Chiefs have been very lucky the past couple years, and lucky in the sense that they haven't had injuries and that they've matched up well with basically everybody. But again, you have to be lucky next year, and we'll see if they can be lucky when it comes down to playoff and Super Bowl time. But the last reason that I did want to give in this video, again, to recap, my number one is going to be the conference improvements. My number two is going to be some new NFC threats, and my number three is that they're going to need a tad bit of luck. But my number four is going to be the fact that I do have some question marks regarding the playmakers on this roster. We'll start off with the running back room because I think that this room is extremely good, but I think it's a little bit top heavy.
Is McKinnon
Your
still
number
there?
one running back is Isaiah Pacheco, who obviously does stand out against the rest of these guys. Behind him, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Deneric Prince, and of course Keontae Ingram. I don't know if Deneric Prince or Keontae Ingram are going to get much run this upcoming season, but I do expect both Isaiah Pacheco
Rasheed Rice, when is he getting suspended? Because we know for sure he's missing some time.
Ridiculously good contract. They're going to run him down a brick wall.
Yeah, Worthy, Hollywood, Justin Watkins, not Watkins, Watson.
But I wouldn't necessarily call this
Bro,
running back.
I really hope Justin Ross
can
get a shot this year.
They fit the system quite nicely, but again, as I said
guy,
in the third part, you're gonna need a bit of luck with these guys to stay healthy. But that's really not a big question for me. For me, the bigger questions comes with this receiving core because you really have three guys that all kind of specialize in something similar with each other. For starters, body-wise, your top five guys, which would be Rasheed Rice, Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, Mecole Hardman, and Kadarius Toney, all kind of have a similar build to one another.
Why the hell do they still have Kadarius Toney on the roster? I would have cut this nigga right after the fucking Super Bowl.
And I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing or if that's a good thing. I guess we'll just kind of
this nigga Kadarius Toney really has two rings, bro.
That I mentioned, I think they do come with their own unique set of questions. Starting off with Rasheed Rice, who had a fantastic rookie season, the big concern for him is going to be the off-the-field stuff that has been going on this entire offseason. He had some issues with the law when it came down to his time here in Dallas, Texas. He had an accident on the highway where he was going over 100 miles per hour. And then there was an incident where an alleged assault happened. Nothing has came out quite yet, at least to my knowledge, regarding whether Rice is going to get suspended or not. But I do think there is a reasonable expectation that at some point the law will come down on Rasheed Rice and maybe he'll be suspended for a handful of games next year. Then
I'll say about
Brown,
6 games.
The most experienced guy within this receiving group. Marquise Brown is an interesting player because when healthy and when with a good quarterback, he typically performs quite well. But the problem for Marquise Brown is that, number one, he struggled to stay healthy last year, and we'll see if he can do that this upcoming season. But I think he does struggle with being one of the top receivers on a respective team. Everywhere he's gone, he's always kind of been that number one receiver, but I don't think he's ever quite reached the expectations that we had for him. When he was with the Ravens, he was technically their number one wide receiver, but I never really felt like he lived up to the expectations of
that's understandable because, like, bro, we were really a rushing offense. We didn't really throw the ball like that, so that's why he didn't really look like a number one receiver. Do I think that he has the potential to be a number one receiver? Absolutely. But, you know what I'm saying? It's just been bad timing with him, bro.
And the same thing kind of followed him down to Arizona, where
because when he went to Arizona, Kyler Murray, you know what I'm saying, was still dealing with injuries.
Like he was ever that good at being a number one receiver.
I think
and now he's here.
Kyler got hurt his first season with Hollywood, right?
Two next to Rice, but I think at certain points this season he'll be that receiver one. And while I do feel like his fit with Mahomes is going to be seamless, we'll just have to wait and see if he can match the expectations that we do have for him. We'll talk about Xavier Worthy here in a second, but quickly, I just want to gloss over Kadarius Toney and Mecole Hardman. I don't know how much run those guys are going to get. They were pretty bad last year, to put it lightly. Then there's Xavier Worthy, the young rookie receiver who I think has a bunch of talent, especially on this Chiefs roster, but I don't really know if he's going to be able to stay healthy this upcoming season. During his time at Texas, he was a fairly durable player, oftentimes playing through injuries. He had a broken hand that he played through for Texas just a few years ago, and then last year he had several leg injuries that he played through the entire season.
I think that was 2022. As we sit right
now, as I've been watching the OTAs, Xavier Worthy has not been participating in a lot of the different drills or exercises or practices. He's just basically been walking around out there. And I do think that bodes well for Worthy's career. Obviously, you want him to get healthy for the season, but we shall see if he can stay healthy for the entire 17-game regular season. And then, of course,
and I've heard rumors of it going to 18 games. What are they trying to kill these players, bro?
History. I won't go that far, but he's definitely
18 games is probably a little bit too much.
Can he continue to defy the odds of age? He's a 34-year-old tight end who is still putting up some ridiculous numbers. But I do feel like last year, with a lot of the attention being put on him, he wasn't able to quite reach up to his typical status of how good he is as a tight end. I still feel like NFL wise, he's maybe the first or second best tight end in the league, but I do feel like he is slowly falling off a tad bit, but we'll have to wait and see if it does impact their 2024 season. So those are the 4 biggest reasons as to why they might not be able to win a championship next year. If you guys think of another potential reason why they might not win next year, let me know in the comment section below and I'll make sure to comment on your post.
No team has ever done it. That's my reason. No other team in the NFL history has done it, because it's so hard, because it's the NFL. So I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on post notification, notified whenever I drop another banger video. One road at 300 subs. Let me get that for more banger NFL content like this. And without further ado, I'm out. Gang.